Good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us live. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch today. So do me a favor and make sure you share that live out. I apologize that we're late. We thought we were live this whole time, but we're trying to use this new platform to get you guys the information that you need. I'm getting ready to go ahead and add the Village 337 live Zoom meeting that's currently taking place right now into the live. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys for joining us. Do me a favor, share this. Love this. Tap the screen. If you want to know what's happening in community, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and get thank you guys for tuning in. Tap that screen and keep on going. Really quick, VP, I just want to go ahead and let everybody know that we are currently live now. So please be mindful that we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So whatever you say will be recorded and it will be permanent. So again, we want to welcome everybody that may be joining us from those social media platforms. We have been on with myself, and I'm also joined with my co-host today, my co-director and vice president of the Village 337, Miss Angela, who has been doing the great work behind the scenes to help us stay organized and structured, who's there on the ground there in Lafayette, Louisiana. Want to give a quick shout out, of course, to the board who has been integral in making decisions and keeping us afloat despite everything that's happening in community, despite everything that's happening in personal lives. We have gone through the ringer personally over the last couple of years, last year, so to speak. And but God is still good, and you know what? We still do this work for the people. We don't do it for clout's credit or nothing like that, as y'all can see. Because whether it's 5 of us or 500 of us, we will be here. We will continue to organize. We will continue to educate. Do me a favor, share the screen. Share the screen. Do me a favor and share this live out, share all of the information that you want to go ahead and if you want to go ahead and get this information to somebody that you know and love, now would be the time to go ahead and do that. And I have been given the word from our vice president to go ahead and go to the next subject, and hopefully we'll have our special guest joining us really soon here. We have a great presentation prepared for you guys. Hopefully you get to get some updates about what's happening across the state with the recall petitions, which our vice president was just speaking about. We know that Jeff Landry and these so-called politicians, these toxic individuals who have been intricate part in trying to essentially continue to tear down the systems that have been put in place to fight against oppression, to fight against bigotry, to fight against the hypocrisies that we have faced for over 400 years in this country, right? We know that Jeff Landry, along with Liz, our Attorney General, and along with a lot of these politicians that may be on the chopping block at this point, are more than worthy of what's happening to them right now. For those of you who don't know, every state in the United States of America does not have the ability to recall. I did not know that. I found this information out very recently. So what does that mean? That means that we have a unique ability to be able to participate in the legislative process in a way that a lot of other people in our country don't. A lot of other people in our country cannot have buyer's remorse. They can't decide for themselves, like we can, that we want to do something about our elected officials. We can't, just like we can't do that with the president. If we could do that with the president, you wouldn't have to worry about, what is it, the 25th Amendment, I believe it is, being invoked, right? We wouldn't have to worry about, oh, is the cabinet going to have some balls, excuse my frankness, to actually do something about what we see happening in community. So do me a favor, for those of you that are on live, share this out. If you're concerned about what's happening with your children at LPSS, if you're in Lafayette, Louisiana, or in the surrounding areas, if your concern is more about the drama that's happening with Mr. Pork Steak or anybody else, I mean, hey, I could say it because it's public information, then you have a problem. Because right now, people are asking me, well, what's wrong with the charter schools? Why we can't have charter schools? In case you didn't know, Project 2025 existed as a plan to be able to dismantle our ability to be able to grow as a community. Part of that plan is the dismantling of the public education system. How do you start to dismantle the public education system? You attack the entities that were literally established to be able to prevent discrimination within education. What does discrimination within education looks like? It looks like your child not being able to go to a school that's getting the better funding because they decide who can and can't go to their school. Now, why does that matter with charter schools? Every time you pull your child out of the public school and it goes to a charter school, which, hey, at this point, I'm like, do what you got to do, right? I'm not judging nobody for doing it, but I'm giving us the education so we can understand the connection, the correlation that's happening here. When we pull our children out of the public school, that money, that public dollar that funds your child to go to public school, guess what? It literally follows them. Okay? It follows them. It follows them to the charter school. So what does that mean? That means now the public school has less funding. So what does that tell us? When the superintendent is making more and more money, every time you turn around, the school board is approving him another raise, and yet we're losing schools. Oh, but they're telling us we're gonna build y'all a new school. We're just gonna consolidate y'all all in one place. And then every time they do that, they create little ghettos, and then they tell you, oh, well, you're violent, you're criminal, you're all these other things. When you created these places where you're putting everybody in one space, you're under resourcing them. They don't have access to you know. It reminds me of a time frame when you used to hear the elderly people talk about, oh yeah, the black schools got the raggedy books. And you know what's crazy? I went to JW Falk Elementary. And what I can remember about that is we didn't have brand new books. But if you went as soon as I went to Charles Burke, my last year of elementary school, guess what I finally had, y'all? Brand new books. It makes a difference. Well, how does it make a difference if it's the same curriculum? Because a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it takes the teacher to have to go ahead and update the coursework because the teacher is educated enough to know the difference. And if you don't get lucky and get one of those teachers, guess what you have? The same problem. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna get off that tangent. But if we are watching on social media platforms right now, because we're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Okay, I said we're gonna bring this type of organizing to young people, to their platforms. So we are on these platforms. Why? Because we need to be able to educate our young people about what's happening in community, guys. We need to be able to educate ourselves and each other about what's happening in community. Our education system is literally the nucleus for how we escape poverty, for how we escape oppression, for how we escape the chains that we're no longer in physical chains, we're in psychological chains. That's why I got this tattoo. I don't know if y'all can see it, but it's of me breaking chains. The camera's off. Oh, they can see it on Facebook. Y'all go watch it on Twitch or YouTube. I'm just messing around. But no, I mean, this is what we have to do, y'all. We have to be more intentional about educating each other and ourselves. Where it starts, that damn school board. And I'm so proud of the women who have joined our organization and who have been doing great work, who are affiliates of our organization, even if they're not members, who have been doing really great work in calling these elected officials to what they're supposed to really be doing, which is advocating on behalf of the young people. You don't hear nobody talking about the damn children. What are they talking about? All they're talking about is money, keeping their jobs. Nobody's talking about the actual well-being of the children. Okay, I digress on that situation. Now, speaking of children, we move to what's happening on a more national level. You have Nolan Wells, who's a young man who goes on a boating trip on the 4th of July with his friends who happen to be white, which is not as relevant as some people may want it to be or may think it is actually. But it's ironic because of the fact that we have a system now that the first thing that they say And when I mean they, I mean the sheriff's office, I mean the governmental entities, is there no signs of foul play involved? How in the hell do you get an 18-year-old athlete washed up ashore and you don't think it's a sign? The 18-year-old athlete washing up on shore dead is the foul play, the sign of foul play. Mhm. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And everything I say is allegedly. So just so, just so we're clear on that. But allegedly, these young white boys and white girl, from what we're hearing, all had these interactions with Nolan. And if you remember, if you're paying attention to what's happening, the biggest thing that his friends now they go on this show. Oh my God! If you guys have been watching Nancy Grace, and there's a guy on there, and he's a white guy, and his name they're calling him oh, I forgot what his name is, but he's an influencer, and he calls this black officer who I consider an outright coon. He calls him Race Batum Tatum. Because his name is Brandon Tatum, and he's interviewing Nolan's so-called friends. Nolan's parents has already said that these are not his best friends. Um, they get onto this platform, call Nolan's parents liars, specifically, ironically enough, the black best friend who's trying to obviously cover up for his white friends, call him a liar, call his parents a liar because they are clarifying that these are not his best friends. His best friends, guess where they were? At his funeral. They were at his parents' house in the weeks following up to his funeral. They were supporting, they were being there. They know him and they know his parents. That's who his best friends were, allegedly. That's what his that well, that's actually what his mother said. So that's not allegedly. That's from his mother's mouth. Um, yeah, yeah, they would have been just. She didn't disclose specifically, but from she only said that saying best friend would be a stretch. From what I assume, they're friends from school. You know, like we all have multiple groups of friends, especially back then in school. And I went to a predominant. Well, we both did, ironically enough. We went to the same high school, so we know how that is. You know, I had a lot of groups of friends that were predominantly white. There was often times where I was in spaces where I was the only black person. I was not seeking to be the only black person in those spaces. And that's the difference here. And the crazy part is that we have people here who are um, making this an indictment on his mother and father because they chose to get with a civil rights attorney and civil rights organizations that would do the work to ensure that this police department, the sheriff's department, the state of Mississippi, the coroner's office would be held to a standard that we have seen time and time again in Mississippi that they are not. We know that there have been cases in Mississippi where there's speculations of cover ups allegedly, especially in particular with the coroner of Mississippi. We understand that unequivocally. We have experienced it in Louisiana, where when a young man is murdered in the state of Louisiana, we advise every family, if it's at all possible, to get an independent autopsy done because we do not trust the coroners of our state. So when people act as if it's so uncouth of this mother to want to address the issue in this manner, you're the problem. And yes, I've been calling each and every one of them racist. I've been addressing them as such. I would not advise you all to engage how I've been engaging because it can be draining mentally, spiritually, and physically. So I'm not saying that anybody anybody should be going off like I go off. But what I am saying, y'all, is that Houston, we have several problems. Okay, this young man goes out with his friends on this boat. He does not come back home. They keep his cell phone and don't tell his mother that they have his cell phone. She then has to track his cell phone through the Life 360 app while his friends, his real best friends, are tracking it through Snapchat. Now, this young white boy goes on Warren goes on to Race Batum Tatum's show, and he goes through their day, and you got this coon ass officer with his leg crossed, I guess because he's married to a white woman, which, hey, my family is very diverse, okay? But the white people in my family are saying the same thing I'm saying. Who does that? You know, like, even if, say, if the kids were black, he went with his group of friends. Do you know we would have got our black asses whipped by our parents, even at the good age of 18, if one of our friends came home, if we all came home and one of our friends did not come home and we left them on a damn island? Being drunk and full of cocaine like they were, allegedly, is not an excuse. Being young and dumb was never an excuse. You heard what Nolan's father told him, what his mother told him. And if you didn't hear, I'm going to tell you right now. They said that they told him every time he went out, who you go out with is who you come home with. Now, if you black, that sounds very familiar, because we've all been told that by our parents. So we know they're not lying. And when you look at the pictures and the videos of this young man, you know he wouldn't have left his friends on an island. So why would they leave him on the island? So if they, let's just go with the narrative that they didn't kill him. They didn't unalive him. Let's go with that. Well, why in the hell does nobody know what the hell happened to the kid? I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. And if I'm being honest with y'all, you should be sick too, and we should be demanding justice every single day. And there's more situations that are happening like that. You see, it was never really about the kids being white. Some people said that, of course, people will say that. I went to a predominantly white school. I knew it was never about the kids being white. It was about the fact that the system, that the powers that be immediately came out and justified that there was nothing that happened, nothing that went wrong. Do I think that Nolan's friends killed him because he was black? No. The point is, he's a black boy who got killed, and so if we're not careful, he's going to be a black boy without justice. I digress on that situation. I implore you all to go and do your research, to watch what's happening, listen to the audio that came out. We hear now that there is an audio where the young man, Wyatt, calls the Mississippi boater something, but essentially it's kind of like a roadside assistance for boats. Okay, and they were needing help because he says that the boat is sinking. But you hear in the background, it's a whole panic going on. But I need you guys to understand that the boat is not sinking in the middle of the ocean. Okay, the boat was not sinking somewhere where they didn't have no help. Okay, we hear right after that the young man who made a whole Instagram post when Nolan was found to be deceased, talking about how R.I.P. Nolan, this, that, and the third. I wish I could get that boy's name. It slipped my mind now. And somebody, if somebody's in the chat, if you know the name, please say it. But it's a friend who had created an alibi on his social media saying he was in a whole different state. But then Warren comes out and goes to Race Batum Tatum's TikTok show, and then talks about how he was the one who was able to tow them away. So what is it? Was he not in the state, or was he there? And allegedly, it sounds like if Nolan did get into an altercation, that might have been the one who he got into the altercation with. So I'm telling y'all, we got some stuff going on. We've got to really pay attention to, because what's happening right now is very, very dangerous. White racists are being emboldened in this moment. And we got to call out every coon who looks like me and you, most of us that are on this call right now, who dares to say that anybody is wrong, for especially the mother. I'm getting angry because I don't play about grieving families. How dare you open up your lips to discuss how this family should be grieving? How dare you, as a black person, question this woman's blackness because she's half Filipino? And to be frank, I don't mean to be one of them kind of people, but she don't even really look that Asian. If you from Louisiana, our VP look like she might be a little more mixed than her. You know, just saying. That's how black people are. That's how we are created. We come out in very different shades and complexions and hair textures and everything else. And she so happens to be half Filipino, like my niece is. And I'm telling you right now, God forbid something happened to one of my niece's children, and anybody got something to say about her not being black, and so all of a sudden the black community ain't supposed to ride for her, and she lived her entire experience as a black woman. Y'all never gave her grace because her hair was smooth. Y'all never gave her grace because her eyes may have been a little bit more slanted than yours. And I can say it because it's her features. It's my niece. Yeah, nobody ever gave her that grace until all of a sudden, when now we need the support, you're saying, oh, well, she ain't one of us. Y'all did the same thing to Kamala Harris, and now we have a pedophile for president. I digress. Again, I just want to tell each and every one of you all that we have so much work to do. I would really like to bring on our vice president to talk about, because obviously y'all can see it can make some people a little crazy, to talk about the psychological impact of not only the Nolan Wells case, and not to his family, not to, because I mean, we can't even, that would be a whole nother live, right? But I want you to speak to those of us that are gathered here, because we're activists, we're people who are concerned about community, people who want to engage, but mental health is important as well.
are moving from each everywhere. You know, so I feel like elections and voting is kind of my niche, it's kind of my thing where I advocate heavily. And but I also understand that the police violence is an issue, that our healthcare is an issue, that we have a whole lot of areas to fight in. So I don't wanna talk too much. I kind of want y'all to talk to me. So y'all, somebody asked me a question.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Attorney Michelle Charles. I know you can't see me, but that's because we're live right now. So I'm trying to learn how to use these streaming platforms so they can see you and they can see me on social media, but I can't see you. You can't see me on Zoom, but I can see you. And I want to again thank you for your work because, like you said, yes, we have all been boots on the ground, but what people don't realize, it takes those people who not only specialize in law, but who have the degrees and licensing to be able to back us as advocates and freedom fighters. Because I mean, let's be real, we don't know the law. So we learn from people like you, and that's why we are so appreciative for you to be here today. And you pretty much hit everything that we were asking. So we definitely want to give this opportunity for you guys. Look, now hold up. Now I just want to be very clear. This is not the time for you to ask Attorney Michelle Charles about your divorce proceedings. It's not the time for you to ask her about your child custody case or nothing like that. You put her on a retainer, and then I'm sure she'd be happy to help you. But this is the time to ask about those issues that pertain to community, right? So we heard her talk about the Nolan Wells case. We heard her talk about how the attorney general is of the state is acting out there. I do have a particular question I'm asking, then I'm gonna let y'all ask y'all questions. And then also for those of you guys who are in Louisiana, she is an intricate part of these recall petitions. So if you have specific questions about voting, how does that work? All of that, please put that on your mind. But what I want to ask Attorney Michelle Charles is, what are your thoughts about this judge stepmom who has already implicated herself, in my opinion, my non-degreed, law-degreed opinion, uh, and has created some sense of alibi for her stepson and children in this post that she created. Isn't there like a conflict of interest that's happening right now? And has she done herself and maybe her family a disservice? And why are they letting these kids go talk to this? I don't. I've been calling him a coon all live. I don't know what your limitations are on that, but Brandon Tatum, they're talking to him, but they're not talking to nobody else. What do you think about that?
I think, and just like you said, like if we had nothing to hide, if our families had nothing to hide, why so much effort put into covering up these things? And normally judges are sworn by the judicial canon of a particular state. They have a very strict code of conduct of how they can't really speak on anything, any matters, when it comes to criminal matter, any type of matters, because it's gonna appear they don't want the appearance of a conflict of interest at all.
Mm,
Because if the case was to come before them, they have to be determined to be impartial to the proceedings. So judges are really always walking a fine line when it comes to speaking. So you probably don't won't see many judges, except when it comes to re-election time, you won't see judges on social media at all talking about anything. They might wish somebody a happy birthday, but now you've seen the judges in New Orleans recently being a lot more vocal because of the issues with the attorney general and the governor. But judges are really sworn to secrecy, if that makes sense. And so it, the way everyone has moved in the Nolan Wells case is suspicious. Everybody is moving suspiciously. If I was a parent out of South Carolina called the Bird Owls.
Hmm.
I'm familiar with their case, and they kind of ran rampant in South Carolina. And I think the attorney got arrested or something, got convicted on and is doing life in prison. But all of our states have these type of people in them. And the Bird Owls were making hundreds and millions of dollars off of black families when they settlement, stealing their settlement money.
Mm.
And the banks was in on it, the coroners, everybody in the whole state was in on these cases. And that's exactly what continues to happen in the community all the time.
I appreciate you for saying that. A lot of people don't realize, especially when we look at the coroner's office specifically. I remember having to, I worked in the funeral industry, so it's on the other side of things, but I remember having to educate, even some of my family members on like the fact that, these people have very important roles in our society. And when black people die and they end up in the hands of these coroners, they can make it appear that they died any kind of way. You understand what I'm saying? So we have got to stay on them. So to your point that you were making earlier, I did a kind of agree that it was hasty. But once I realized that the inner, of course, of Nolan's throat was still missing from the autopsy, and of course the lungs, I started to realize that that may have been more of his point. That it probably wouldn't have been good for him to just come out and say, "Well, we have a missing throat and lungs." So he wanted to give this idea of, well, you get to see the whole thing, and he did say that it's part of standard procedure. But let's be real, if we're not being real about the fact that Mississippi knows what's happening, if you have a case where we need all hands on deck, you could have done whatever investigation that you needed to do with the throat, with the lungs, and everything else, and sent those parts. When you got, in my opinion, when there's an independent autopsy being done, do what you got to do, wash your hands of it, and move it on. If you want the family to feel that they can trust, because especially in such a public situation as an elected official, because I know here in Louisiana, right, most of our coroners are elected, right, if I'm not mistaken, they're not appointed. So if you're in that kind of position, wouldn't you want to use that opportunity? And I mean, let's be real, situations like this can be very opportunistic to show the community and the public that you can be trusted. So why would we not? And I know this is, you're more on the law side, but I'm sure you've dealt with this before in similar situations. Why would we have a body that's missing intricate parts that could determine conclusivity, that could make us determine whether or not, okay, now we know, most people don't know, but a lot of us on this call may know that a diagnosis of drowning is exclusionary. In other words, meaning it's going to take a lot to determine that he just drowned. You have to exclude that there was some type of health emergency other than drowning. You have to exclude drug overdose. You have to exclude a lot of other potential things. That's why we're waiting on toxicology reports. But the throat, like, and then also not just but the throat, but you had weeks you had a whole week, I think it was, before Nolan's body was brought to the independent autopsy, the independent coroner, to do the autopsy. So why was all hands not on deck to make sure we did what we needed to do with his throat and his lungs, and then send that with the body? I digress.
Well, yeah, exactly. So we know that the Mississippi Medical Examiner is notorious for ruling that black deaths, especially these suspicious black deaths. I believe I heard about four names where the Mississippi Medical Examiner, Trey Reed, in down by the college. I can't think of the other names right now,
That's right. Do we have any more questions for Attorney Michelle Charles? I know we usually don't go over an hour, but we're in trying times right now, y'all, and we're getting closer and closer to the midterm election cycle. So we can go on and on, and maybe I'll talk with her. If maybe when she got some free time, we can do a live and really do a deep dive on this Nolan Wells case and other cases in Mississippi, and connect them to what we know has happened in Louisiana with a few cases we've worked on together, and how it is very difficult to trust the people that you never think. Nobody, unless you've been in this work before, nobody ever thinks you can't trust the coroner. Nobody ever thinks about it. Your loved one dies and they say an autopsy needs to be done. Nobody ever bats an eye. So if it's suspicious, I know a couple of those situations were hangings, and they could consider them suicide. So, and guess who determines that, y'all? Not the police, the coroner. you know. Okay. No, I'm sorry, I didn't see. Nope.
So glad to be honest with you. Those Quick Connect subscriptions be costing a lot of money, and I am not a rich lawyer. But there may be some more access to different historical records that the attorneys have access to. But they're probably paying $100 a month for those subscriptions. And so just imagine if you're practicing all across the state of Louisiana, and each courthouse you gotta pay $100 a month for a subscription. So that's how they really get you, because they make the access to justice unaccessible to regular people, including lawyers that don't make a lot of money. Yeah. That's one of the goals of the project. I've been recording all the information off of the Third Connect website for here in Lafayette so far, and I've also been downloading and saving all of the images. So I have all of the images for Lafayette going back to 2019. But that was almost 2 million images and 80,000 cases, and I've created a searchable database so you can search by the defendant, you can search by the judge, you can search by law enforcement officers. They show up in warrants, subpoenas, any other of those images where they don't record the officer's name in the minute entries. And then I also generated a bunch of statistics about sentencing, bond issues, bond by race, blah, blah, blah. Take your blame for doing that for the people, because just like I said, normal everyday people, they, even parking at the courthouse costs money. Even going to they make it unattainable for regular everyday people to even have access to justice. So what you're doing right now is God's work. So don't keep up the good work, and I appreciate it. If I need some help, if I need something from out of the records in Lafayette Parish, I definitely will hit you up. Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Blaine, for your question. That's something
earlier. Attorney Michelle, before you got on, I was sharing about the project with Blaine. And like you said, him and I talked yesterday. And there's a couple of other attorneys that partner and allies of the village that we work with. And I was sharing with him some of them have some of those subscriptions because they do a lot of practicing in Lafayette Parish, Vermilion, and I think Acadia. So some of them have some of those subscriptions. And they're privy to a little bit more than maybe what you can pay for by access as a public citizen. So that's where that question came up. But yeah, it is expensive from what I understand. Any other questions before we proceed on to the closing with President Devon? No? Okay. All right. I'll give it over to you, President Devon, for you to do our closing.
All righty. I appreciate you, Vice President, for, of course, facilitating. Even though I was the facilitator today, but for having done it, these last couple of months. For a lot of people who may not be aware, we have been doing this for a little over 5 years now. Wait, is it going to be six? It's going to be 6 years. 6 years this year, next month. And we have definitely come a long way. Attorney Michelle Charles, I think, literally has quite literally been with us since the beginning. So it's always an honor to be able to hear from her and to be able to. She has such a way of communicating with the people, and I think that's why she is looked at as not only an attorney, of course, but a civil rights leader, in my opinion, of our time and day. So again, when you guys see experts like herself come on, please take advantage of that opportunity to really get to learn. And I think we were able to do that tonight. So Attorney Michelle, thank you for that. And I look forward to a day where we'll be able to partner and say, look, oh, you need a subscription where? Okay, here's that $100. We got you. Because of course, of course. And to all of the guests, Blaine, you as well. We haven't met yet, but I appreciate your work as well because we, Vice President and myself, were talking about a couple issues in the last meeting, I think it was, and we were addressing some things. And when I spoke with her earlier about your project, we just talked about the correlation of how many people just don't have access to information. So we really want to go ahead and lift up guys, people who are doing the background work. Because again, that's what it takes to get here. Any other questions? I want to make sure we're not leaving anybody out, leaving any opportunities out to anything that's happening in community before we go on. Again, we have a meeting next month. It's going to be the same time and the same day, the last Tuesday of every month. We do meet weekly on Tuesdays. For those of you guys who don't know, we do have a prayer call, prayer group. And yes, it is Christian based, but you guys know I am a non conforming Christian. I am a what you call deconstructing Christian. So my Christianity is based on the walk of Christ and not religion. So you don't have to feel like your religion will hinder you from being with us. It's all about positive energy, praying for peace and happiness and stability, really centering ourselves so we can continue to have the energy and recharging to do this work. So you feel free to meet us every Tuesday. VP, before I end this, you want to let everybody know a way that they can go ahead and donate to the movement, donate to the organization, so we can continue doing this work.
Right now, we have only Cash App available at this time. We're looking into getting other methods, but right now, Cash App, $Village 337 is what we have readily available.
And you can write a check, right?
You can write a check. You can write a check, and I can deposit it into the Village 337-501 bank account. I'm working on getting the Zelle set up with that account. It's kind of tricky for nonprofit banks. It's different from personal Zelle, so I'm working on that right now.
Thank you so much. And anything that you can give, does definitely help. Even for us to be able to do these lives costs money, y'all, because now we're trying to broadcast it and stream it out publicly. So as usual, though, we whatever we gonna do, we take care of it. It's myself and the VP and the board. I mean, we've carried the organization financially, but if I'm being honest with you, now it's at the stage where it's time for it to start carrying itself, and we do that by supporting however we can. And guess what? If not, we still gonna make it happen. We're gonna keep this work going. I again want to thank all of the speakers, the attendees, members, volunteers, and supporters. As we continue to grow back our participation, I would implore you all to please invite somebody to the next meeting. We will be putting out information where pretty soon, we'll probably in between this month and next month, we'll have this meeting, between this meeting and the next meeting, we will have probably a leadership meeting where people can come in who want to be leaders of the organization and lead in different aspects, right? Like, of course, we have the education portion of the organization. We have people who specifically want to focus on police brutality, and people who want to focus on policy change, which we were talking a lot about tonight with Attorney Michelle Charles, and there are organizers who specifically want to focus on those areas. And guess what? We need your leadership. We need you to show up, and we need you to help us to organize. Many people, have a lot to say, and they have a lot to do. They just don't know how. So we work with each other to organize and to make ourselves better. And that's what we're going to do. So again, I thank each and every one of you for coming in. Today, I want to pray for your peace. I pray for your stability. I pray for your happiness. I pray for a peace of mind for all of us. May we all be centered back to that place that is of peace, especially in trying times of turmoil and chaos. May each and every one of our callings be glorified and amplified in our minds so we can know what our assignment is. And so we don't live life staggering and wondering. And may we continue to have provision for what we are called to do. I pray now that you are protected. I pray that you are at peace, and that no harm that comes against you shall prosper. It is in Jesus' name and in our own names we pray. Amen, amen, amen. And I call this meeting adjourned. God bless you all. And remember, y'all, it's not a moment, it certainly is a movement. All right, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all the things. I'm going to end this stream, and I will be right back with the Vice President of the Village 337. So stay right there. Join us again here in a moment, and I'll look forward to seeing each and every one of you here in just a moment. God bless.